The crystal towers of Vera city rose high into the sky. Their walls glowed with soft blue light, casting long reflections across the wide marble streets. It was the heart of the alien kingdom, a place of music, ceremony, and pride. Every day, nobles in shining robes walked through the halls of the palace, speaking of trade, honor, and war. On this day, however, the attention of the court gathered for something unusual. A human had come to stand before the throne. The great hall filled with whispers as Darren, a tall man with broad shoulders and worn armor, stepped forward. His armor was scratched and dull, showing years of battles. He carried no crown or symbol of power, yet there was a strength in his presence. His eyes were calm, his movements steady, as if nothing could shake him. Some looked at him with respect, others with doubt, for few in Vera had ever seen a human stand in their court. On the throne sat Queen Solara, ruler of the kingdom. Her crown was thin and delicate, shaped from silver branches that curled around her dark hair. Her voice was calm when she spoke, yet it carried across the hall like a command. She introduced Darren as a warrior from the stars who had fought in many wars against raiders that threatened both humans and aliens alike. He had come not as a conqueror but as a guest, seeking to aid their people in times of danger. Near the throne stood Princess Alira, the queen's only daughter. She was young, sharp-eyed, and proud. Her long green robes shimmered under the light, and her chin was lifted high. When her eyes fell on Darren, she narrowed them, hiding her thoughts behind a cold smile. To her, he looked simple, rough, and unworthy of standing in the sacred hall of Vera. She believed humans were weaker, less refined, and far below her people. She leaned slightly toward her mother and whispered words meant to sting. "Why must we honor him? He is only a human. What use is he to us?" The queen gave her a glance but did not reply. Instead, she turned her gaze back to Darren, who stood silently, his head slightly bowed out of respect. His silence did not come from fear but from discipline. He had faced storms, wars, and death, yet the mocking voice of a princess was harder to bear than the clash of swords. Still, he kept his calm. The courtiers began to murmur again, their eyes moving from the princess to the warrior. Alira stepped forward boldly, her voice rising so all could hear. "Look at him," she said. "Is this the warrior who is meant to protect us? His armor is broken, his weapons old. He looks more like a servant than a champion. Do humans call this strength?" Laughter rippled through the younger nobles. Darren stood unmoved. His hands rested at his sides, though his fingers curled for a moment, betraying the storm inside him. He looked at the princess with eyes that were neither angry nor weak but filled with something deeper, something she could not understand. He spoke at last, his voice steady and low. "I do not seek honor, princess. I seek to serve. If my strength is not enough, then let my actions prove themselves." The hall grew quiet. Some nobles frowned, others nodded in respect. The queen studied him carefully, while the princess lifted her chin higher, unwilling to show any sign of doubt. She thought his words were plain, lacking the beauty of court speech. To her, his silence and his calm were signs of weakness, not wisdom. She laughed softly, turning away as if his presence was beneath her notice. But deep inside, a small part of her wondered why his voice carried such weight, even when his words were simple. The queen rose from her throne, her robe flowing across the marble steps. Her eyes moved from her daughter to the warrior. She spoke to the court with authority. "The storm fields grow dangerous. Raiders from the outer worlds gather beyond our borders. We need those who will face them without fear. This human has fought them before. He has lived where others have fallen. He may appear plain to your eyes, but the truth of a warrior is not in the shine of his armor. It is in the strength of his heart. Her words silenced the court. None dared argue with the queen, though some exchanged doubtful looks. Princess Alira, however, remained unconvinced. She crossed her arms and spoke again. If he is to lead, then let him prove it. Words and silence are easy. Action is harder. The queen's gaze lingered on her daughter, then returned to Darren. She nodded once, her voice calm but firm. Then so it shall be. Darren will lead a mission into the storm fields. You, Alira, will go with him. You will see for yourself what strength is, and whether humans are worthy of our trust. The hall gasped at the order. The princess's eyes widened for a moment, then narrowed. She wished to protest but dared not disobey her mother in front of the court. Instead, she gave Darren a cold look, her voice sharp as glass. Very well. Let the human lead. We will see if he survives. Darren met her gaze, and though his face showed no anger, there was a quiet fire in his eyes. He bowed to the queen, then to the princess, showing respect even when none was given in return. The courtiers whispered among themselves, sensing that something important was beginning, something that could change more than the fate of one man or one princess. When the court was dismissed, Alira walked swiftly ahead, her robe trailing behind her like a banner of pride. Darren followed at a steady pace, his armor clinking softly with each step. The path ahead was filled with storms, danger, and hidden truths. Neither of them knew what awaited beyond the crystal walls of Vera, but both carried their own pride into the journey, one with silence, the other with scorn. The storm fields of Vera lay far beyond the shining city. They stretched like a dark sea under the sky, filled with heavy winds and wild lightning that twisted in strange shapes. Few dared to travel there, for the storms could tear apart both ships and men. Yet it was here the queen ordered her daughter and the human warrior to go, for raiders had gathered in the shadows, preparing to strike. The morning of their departure came quickly. The palace courtyard was filled with soldiers, servants, and curious onlookers. Princess Alira stood tall in her silver armor, her green robe now replaced with the uniform of battle. She held her blade of light at her side, its surface glowing softly. Her expression was calm, though inside she carried anger at being forced to follow a human into danger. She believed it an insult to her honor. Darren approached from the opposite side of the courtyard. His armor was still old and worn, yet freshly cleaned. He carried only a sword and a shield, both simple in design but marked with the weight of many battles. Unlike the other warriors, he did not shine, yet his steady steps drew the eyes of many. He moved without pride, without fear, as if he had walked this path 100 times before. The soldiers whispered among themselves. Some doubted him, others admired him. But all knew that the queen's word could not be challenged. Darren was the leader of this mission, and Princess Alira, though unwilling, was bound to follow. At the edge of the courtyard stood the queen herself. Her gaze moved over the gathered company. Her voice was calm but strong as she spoke. The storm fields are not only danger. They are a test. Raiders wait there, hidden among ruins and shadows. Some seek to break our borders. Others seek treasures left by old worlds. You will go and see the truth. Bring back knowledge, and if you must, bring back victory. Her words fell over the company like iron. No one moved until she raised her hand in blessing. Then the soldiers stepped aside as Darren and Alira walked past, followed by a small group of warriors chosen for the journey. Their path led out of the city gates, into the wild lands beyond the crystal walls. The road at first was quiet. The fields of silver grass stretched in every direction, and the towers of the city grew small behind them. The company marched with steady pace, their armor clinking softly. Alira walked at the front, her head high, not looking at Darren. She wished to show she was above him. But Darren said nothing. He kept his eyes on the horizon, where dark clouds churned like restless waves. Hours passed, and the silence grew heavy. At last, Alira spoke, her voice sharp. "Do you know where we go, human? Or do you only walk and hope the path shows itself?" Darren turned his head slightly toward her, his voice calm. "I know the way. The raiders choose the same places again and again. They hide in ruins left from old wars. The storms cover their tracks, but they cannot cover their hunger. They will be there." His answer was plain, yet steady. Alira felt her pride stir again. She laughed softly. "You speak with confidence, but you are only guessing. My people have maps of these lands. Do you?" Darren shook his head once. "No map. Only memory." His words made some of the soldiers exchange glances. They had seen many leaders carry scrolls, crystals, and guides, yet this human carried nothing but his own memory. Alira smirked, turning away. "Then we are already lost." But Darren did not reply. He simply kept walking. As the day grew longer, the wind rose. Clouds thickened above them, dark and heavy. The first signs of the storm fields appeared ahead, where the land shifted and cracked as if torn apart by great hands. The air smelled of metal, and sparks of blue light flickered in the distance. The soldiers grew tense, for they all knew the stories of those who vanished in the storms. By nightfall, they reached the border of the storm fields. They camped among broken stones, their fires glowing weakly against the wild sky. The wind howled like a living creature, but the fire held. The soldiers sat close together, speaking in low voices. Alira remained apart, her blade of light resting across her knees, her eyes fixed on the storm. She did not look at Darren, though she felt his presence near. He sat across the fire, sharpening his sword slowly, his face calm, his eyes never leaving the shadows beyond the camp. The silence stretched until one of the younger soldiers, a boy named Rin, spoke with curiosity. "Human, tell us. Why do you fight? What drives you to step into battles that are not your own?" Darren lifted his head, his voice quiet yet steady. "I fight because others cannot. I fight because someone must. If no one stands, then all will fall." The words were simple, yet they carried weight. The firelight danced across his scarred face, making him look older, stronger. Some of the soldiers nodded. Even Rin lowered his eyes, thoughtful. But Alira felt her pride rise again. She spoke sharply. "You make yourself sound noble. Yet you fight for pay, do you not? Humans always fight for coin." Darren looked at her, his expression unreadable. His answer was calm. "Not for coin. For life." Her words fell silent after that. She turned her gaze back to the storm, unwilling to let his voice touch her thoughts. The night passed with restless winds. In the morning, the company pressed forward into the storm fields. The ground cracked under their feet, glowing faintly as if light still lived beneath the earth. Strange lightning flickered in the sky, striking far and near without warning. The air was heavy, filled with energy that made every step harder. Yet Darren moved with steady pace, guiding them through. He seemed to know the rhythm of the storms, when to move, when to wait. More than once, he lifted his shield to protect others from falling sparks of fire. His calm spread slowly through the company, though Alira refused to admit it aloud. By midday, they reached a valley where broken towers stood like teeth against the sky. The place was silent, too silent. Darren raised his hand, signaling the company to stop. His eyes searched the ruins, sharp and alert. "They are here," he said softly. Alira frowned. "You see nothing." But even as she spoke, shadows moved among the towers. Figures stepped into view, armed with jagged blades and rifles. Raiders, their faces hidden by masks, their movements quick and deadly. The storm crackled above as if answering their arrival. The soldiers lifted their weapons, forming a line. Alira drew her blade of light, its glow steady in her hands. She glanced at Darren, who stood in front, shield raised, sword ready. His calm face did not change, though the danger grew close. At that moment, Alira felt a strange unease. She had mocked him for his silence, his simple armor, his plain words. Yet now, as he faced the raiders without fear, she wondered if there was something she had failed to see. The storm crackled above the broken towers, filling the sky with restless light. The company of soldiers stood ready, their weapons lifted, their hearts pounding. From the ruins, the raiders began to spread out like shadows, their masks hiding their faces, their jagged blades catching the glow of the storm. The air grew thick with tension, and every soldier felt the weight of danger pressing down. Princess Alira gripped her blade of light tightly, her pride still burning in her chest. She had mocked Darren again and again, calling him plain and weak, yet now she saw him standing at the front of the company with shield and sword. His old armor carried no shine, but his presence gave the soldiers steadiness. He did not shout, he did not show fear, he only raised his hand for silence and waited. The raiders did not charge at once. They circled slowly, testing the group, waiting for the storm to strike. Strange lightning fell in the distance, shaking the ground and making the towers tremble. Alira's heart raced, though she tried to hide it with a mask of calm. She glanced at Darren, expecting him to rush forward or order an attack. Instead, he stood still, his eyes sharp, his body like stone. One of the younger soldiers, Rin, whispered, "Why does he wait? If we strike now, we may scatter them." Another soldier, older and wiser, answered softly, "Look closer. He is watching. He waits for the moment they reveal themselves." Alira heard the words, but she frowned. To her, his silence was another form of weakness. She lifted her blade, ready to step forward, but before she could move, the storm broke. A flash of lightning fell between the two groups, lighting the ruins like fire. At that moment, the raiders charged, their voices rising in a wild cry. Darren raised his shield and called out at last, "Hold the line. Do not break." His voice was not loud, but it carried strength. The soldiers obeyed, forming a wall of shields and blades. The raiders struck with fury, their blades clashing against metal, their rifles firing bursts of energy into the storm. Sparks flew, dust filled the air, and the sound of battle echoed across the ruins. Alira fought at the front, her blade of light flashing bright as she struck down her first foe. She moved with speed and pride, her training clear in every motion. Yet the storm winds whipped around her, and more raiders pressed in from every side. She found herself cornered, three enemies closing in with blades raised high. For the first time, fear touched her heart. Before she could move, Darren was there. His shield slammed into one raider, throwing the figure to the ground. His sword struck the second with a sharp blow, and his shoulder turned to block the third. He moved with steady power, every strike precise, every step firm. He placed himself between Alira and the danger without hesitation. She felt her pride stumble as she watched him fight, his strength carrying her to safety. "Stay close to the line," he said firmly, though not unkindly. She wanted to argue, to say she needed no protection, but the truth burned in her chest. Without him, she might already have fallen. The battle raged on. The soldiers held together, moving as one under Darren's calm commands. He did not waste words, giving only short orders. "Left side, hold steady. Shields up. Step forward, strike, then guard." His voice was steady even when the storm shook the ground. The soldiers felt his confidence and drew strength from it. Alira watched him with growing unease. She had believed humans were weaker, ruled by greed or luck, but what she saw now was neither weakness nor luck. It was patience. Every strike he made was measured. Every choice he made was for the safety of the group, not his own pride. He fought not to shine, but to endure. When the raiders saw their first line fail, they fell back into the ruins, firing their rifles from cover. The soldiers raised shields, crouching low as blasts of energy struck the stones around them. Darren motioned with his hand, guiding the company into the broken walls of an old tower. There they found cover, the storm wind sweeping over them. Alira breathed hard, her chest rising and falling, her pride shaken. Her eyes never left Darren, who stood at the edge of the ruin, shield lifted against the fire. Hours passed as the storm raged. The raiders tried again and again to break their line, but Darren held them back each time. His patience never wavered. He struck when needed, defended when wise, and spoke only when his words mattered. Alira, though unwilling to admit it, began to see why the queen had trusted him. She began to understand why the soldiers looked at him with respect, even though he carried no crown, no shining blade, no perfect armor. When the storm finally eased and the raiders vanished back into the shadows, the soldiers rested inside the ruins. Some carried wounds, but none had fallen. They owed their survival to Darren's steady command. The men spoke of his courage, their voices low but filled with respect. Alira sat apart, her blade across her knees, her thoughts in turmoil. She remembered her words of mockery, her laughter at his silence. Yet when the storm raged and death came close, it was his silence that guided them, his patience that kept them alive. Her pride burned like fire, but something else stirred inside her, something she did not wish to name. Darren walked among the soldiers, checking wounds, speaking soft words of comfort. He moved last to Alira. He looked at her calmly, his voice quiet. "You fought well. Your blade is strong. But strength is more than speed or pride. It is also knowing when to wait." She looked at him sharply, anger and shame mixing in her chest. She wanted to reply with harsh words, but his eyes stopped her. They were not proud, not mocking, not cold. They were filled with something she could not understand, something that made her heart uneasy. It was not the look of an enemy or a servant. It was something else. She turned her head away, saying nothing. He bowed slightly and walked back to the fire, leaving her with her thoughts. That night, as the storm passed and the stars returned to the sky, the soldiers slept in silence. Alira lay awake, her mind filled with questions. Why did his eyes carry such weight? Why did his presence calm the soldiers more than her own noble blood? Why did he fight with such patience, as if he carried more than the duty of battle? The answers did not come. Only the image of the human warrior stood in her thoughts, steady and unshaken, like the storm could never touch him. The ruins stood like broken teeth against the restless sky. Tall stone pillars leaned at sharp angles, their surfaces scarred by storms and fire from forgotten wars. Cracks glowed faintly with strange blue light, remnants of old energy that still slept beneath the earth. The company of soldiers moved carefully among the ruins, their eyes sharp, their weapons ready. The storm had weakened for now, but danger still lingered in every shadow. Princess Alira walked near the front, her blade of light glowing softly in her hand. Her steps were steady, though her heart carried unease. The memory of the last battle still pressed against her pride. She had seen Darren stand like a wall, patient and unshaken, while she herself had nearly been struck down. His strength had saved her, and though she wished to deny it, she could not forget. The thought made her chest heavy. Darren moved ahead of the company, his shield raised, his eyes scanning the broken towers. His old armor was scratched again, marked from the fight, yet he showed no sign of weakness. His silence was steady as always, but to Alira it no longer felt like weakness. It felt like a hidden strength, a strength that carried weight far beyond words. She found herself watching him without meaning to, trying to understand the calm that never left his face. The soldiers followed closely, whispering among themselves. They spoke of how the raiders might return, how the storm could strike without warning. Some looked at Darren with doubt, but more now looked at him with respect. They had seen him guide them through fire, and their faith had begun to shift. The ruins grew darker as clouds rolled overhead. Strange winds whistled through the cracks, carrying sounds that made the company uneasy. Then, from the far side of the ruins, came movement. Shapes rose from the shadows, more raiders than before, their blades gleaming, their rifles sparking with stolen energy. Their masks hid their faces, but their cries carried across the ruins, fierce and wild. "Form the line," Darren said, his voice calm but firm. The soldiers obeyed at once, raising shields and leveling weapons. Alira lifted her blade, standing near the center of the line. Her pride still burned, but now there was something else in her chest, a strange pull to fight with the same steadiness she had seen in Darren. The raiders rushed forward, their steps echoing across stone. The clash came swift and sharp. Blades struck against shields, rifles fired bursts of light, sparks filled the air. The sound of battle rolled through the ruins like thunder. Soldiers shouted, raiders roared, and the storm above answered with fresh lightning. Alira fought fiercely, her blade of light cutting through enemy after enemy. She moved with speed and grace, her strikes glowing bright against the dark. Yet no matter how strong she fought, the raiders pressed closer. Their numbers grew, and their fury did not falter. She turned quickly and saw 3 raiders rushing toward her, their blades raised high. Her breath caught, and for a moment her movements slowed. Before the blades could fall, Darren was there. His shield struck the first raider, his sword cut the second, and his body turned to block the third. He moved not with speed but with steady strength, every motion sharp and sure. He pushed the raiders back, placing himself once again between Alira and danger. Her pride stirred with conflict. She wanted to shout that she needed no shield, yet the truth burned inside her. He had saved her again, and she knew without him she would have fallen. She tightened her grip on her blade, her voice hard. "I do not need your protection." Darren's eyes met hers, calm as ever. "It is not protection. It is duty." His words struck her more deeply than she expected. He turned away then, facing the battle once more, leaving her standing with her heart in turmoil. The fight raged on. Darren moved through the soldiers, guiding them with short commands. His shield guarded the weak points, his sword struck when the line faltered. He fought not for glory but to hold the company together. His patience never broke, even when wounds marked his arms and blood touched his armor. His presence was a wall, a fire, a weight that carried them all. Alira saw it with her own eyes, and though she fought with pride, she could not deny it. Without him, they would have been lost. With him, they endured. At last, after what felt like hours, the raiders began to falter. Their numbers fell, their cries weakened, and they fled back into the ruins, disappearing into the storm. The company stood shaken but alive. Many carried wounds, yet none had fallen. Their breaths came hard, their faces pale, but their spirits remained unbroken. And they all knew why. They turned their eyes toward Darren, whose shield was cracked, whose sword was stained, but whose calm had never left. The soldiers spoke softly, their voices filled with respect. Rin, the youngest, said what many thought aloud. If not for him, we would not be here. The others nodded, their eyes turning to the human warrior. Alira heard their words, and her chest tightened. She remembered how she had mocked him in the court, how she had laughed at his silence. Now, shame touched her pride. She looked at him, standing tall though weary, and she felt something she could not name. It was not respect, not yet, but it was the beginning of something deeper. As the company rested among the ruins, Darren moved quietly from soldier to soldier, checking wounds, offering water, speaking calm words. When he came to Alira, she looked away, unwilling to meet his eyes. He paused, his voice steady. You fought well. You grow stronger. She did not reply. Her pride chained her words, yet her heart stirred. She wanted to ask why he always placed himself between her and danger, why his eyes carried such sorrow when they looked at her. But she could not bring herself to speak. He bowed slightly, as he always did, and turned away. That night, the company made camp in the ruins. The storm rumbled above, but the soldiers found rest in the calm of their leader. Alira sat apart once more, her blade of light across her knees. Her thoughts swirled like the winds. She had seen his strength, his patience, his duty. She had seen the way he fought not for himself but for all. And she wondered, for the first time, if she had been wrong about him from the beginning. The fire flickered against the broken walls, and the storm whispered across the sky. Alira closed her eyes, her pride still strong but her heart shaken. The human warrior was no longer a stranger, no longer only a man to mock. He was something else, something she could not yet name, but something that would not leave her thoughts. The ruins lay silent after the long battle. The storm above had softened, though the clouds still moved like restless giants across the sky. The company gathered in the broken courtyard, their fires glowing faintly against the cracked stone. The soldiers rested, their wounds wrapped, their spirits steady again. Yet an uneasy feeling lingered, for all knew the raiders would not give up so easily. Princess Alira sat apart from the others, her blade of light across her lap. She stared at the fire, though her thoughts wandered far. Again and again, she saw the image of Darren standing before her, shield raised, sword striking with steady strength. He had saved her more than once, yet never asked for thanks. He had guided the soldiers with patience, though none of them wore his colors or shared his blood. She wanted to hate him still, to laugh at his silence, but the fire inside her pride was weaker now. In its place was confusion. Darren sat on the far side of the camp, sharpening his old sword with slow, careful strokes. His face was calm, as it always was, but his eyes were heavy with thought. The storm's light flickered across the scars on his hands, scars carved by years of battles. To him, these ruins were not just stone. They were memories. He had walked among ruins like these before, long ago, when the Queen herself had stood by his side. He carried that memory in silence, for the truth he bore was heavier than steel. When dawn came, the company prepared to return to the city. The storm fields were dangerous, but the Queen had ordered them to bring back knowledge, and they had done so. They had seen the raiders, fought them, and lived to tell of their growing numbers. Darren led the way back, his steps steady as always. Alira followed close, her mind still restless. The journey back was quieter than the one before. The soldiers trusted Darren now, their eyes showing respect when they looked at him. They no longer questioned his place among them. Even Rin, the youngest, walked near him with open admiration. But Alira's pride kept her silent. She spoke little, though her eyes often drifted toward the human warrior without meaning to. At last, after days of travel, the crystal towers of Vera rose once more on the horizon. Their shining walls glowed like a beacon, calling the weary soldiers home. The company marched through the gates, and the people gathered to see them. Whispers spread quickly. The princess had returned with the human warrior at her side, and together they had endured the storms. In the great hall of the palace, Queen Solara awaited them. Her crown shimmered in the light, her gaze strong as always. The company bowed before her, and Darren stepped forward, kneeling in respect. He spoke plainly, his voice steady. The raiders gather in greater numbers than before. They hide in the ruins, shielded by the storms. They will come again. But the soldiers of Vera are strong, and they stood together. The Queen's eyes lingered on him for a long moment, then moved to her daughter. And you, Alira? What did you see? Alira hesitated. Her pride pressed against her chest, but her heart carried the truth. She lowered her head slightly and answered. I saw courage. I saw strength where I had not expected it. Her words rippled through the hall. Some nobles exchanged surprised looks, for the princess had never spoken in such a way of a human. The Queen, however, only nodded, her eyes calm. She dismissed the soldiers, yet kept Darren and Alira before her. When the hall grew quiet, the Queen stepped down from her throne. Her eyes moved between them, sharp yet filled with something deeper, something only a mother could hold. She spoke softly, but her words carried weight. You wonder why I trust this man. You wonder why he stands in my hall, though his armor is plain and his blood is not our own. There is a truth I have carried for many years, a truth you are old enough now to hear. Alira lifted her head, confusion filling her eyes. She glanced at Darren, who stood still, his face unreadable. The Queen drew a long breath, her gaze steady on her daughter. This man is not only a warrior. He is your father. The hall seemed to grow silent at once. Alira's heart pounded in her chest, her breath caught. She looked at Darren as if seeing him for the first time. Her voice trembled. My father. The Queen nodded slowly. Long before you were born, he fought beside me. He was strong when all else fell. He was the shield that kept me safe. When peace returned, I chose to keep his place hidden, for I feared the court would not accept a human bloodline in the crown. I raised you alone, but I did not forget him. He returned now, not to claim power, but to stand once more when danger rises. Alira's legs felt weak beneath her. She turned toward Darren, her voice sharp though filled with confusion. "Why did you not tell me? Why did you stay silent while I mocked you? While I called you weak?" Darren's eyes met hers, calm but filled with sorrow. His voice was low, steady. "Because your anger was easier to bear than your pain. Because I wished only to protect you, even if you hated me. I have carried the truth in silence, for your safety, for your mother's honor. I never sought glory. Only to watch over you." Alira's chest burned with a storm greater than any she had faced in the ruins. Anger, shame, disbelief, and something else she could not name all struck at once. She turned away, unable to face either of them. Her voice was low but sharp. "You should have told me. I deserved to know." The queen placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Yes. And now you do." Silence filled the hall. Darren bowed his head, his scarred hands tightening at his sides. Alira stood frozen, her heart torn between pride and pain. She had mocked him, laughed at him, denied him. Now she knew he was not just a human warrior, but her father. That night, Alira sat alone in her chamber. The storm outside whispered against the windows, but the storm inside her was louder. She thought of every word she had spoken to him, every moment he had shielded her, every time she had seen his eyes watching her with something she had not understood. Now she knew. It had been love. Not the love of a servant for a princess, but the love of a father for his child. She pressed her hand against her chest, her pride still strong, but her heart breaking. For the first time, she did not know what to say, what to feel, or what path to walk. The revelation had left Princess Alira restless. Her chamber, once filled with the soft glow of the palace lights, now felt cold and heavy. She walked along the polished floor, her blade of light leaning against the wall. Her thoughts swirled in chaos, like the storms she had faced in the ruins. She had mocked Darren, called him weak, and doubted his strength, yet now the truth was clear. He was her father. The weight of her pride pressed heavily upon her chest. She remembered every moment of their journey, the way he had stood calm in the storm fields, the way he had guided the soldiers through danger, the way he had shielded her when the raiders attacked. At the time, she had resisted the truth, refusing to admit admiration for a human. Now, she could not escape the realization. Shame and regret burned inside her like fire, yet beneath them was something gentler, a strange longing for understanding. Darren stood in the courtyard below, speaking softly with the soldiers. His armor was dented, his blade worn, but his posture remained steady. He spoke calmly, guiding the men as he had in the storm fields. Alira watched him through the window, her heart torn. He had carried the truth in silence for years, protecting her without seeking reward or recognition. The realization made her chest ache. Pride and guilt clashed violently within her. At last, she could bear it no longer. She left her chamber quietly, her steps soft against the stone floor. She found him standing near the training grounds, watching the soldiers practice, correcting their form, offering encouragement. His eyes, calm as always, met hers, and she froze. She had expected anger, reproach, or disappointment. But there was none. Only patience, steady and unwavering. She began, her voice uncertain. She stopped, unable to form the words. Darren tilted his head slightly, silent, waiting. She swallowed, the fire of her pride trembling. I was wrong, she finally admitted. I mocked you. I doubted you. I. I did not see what was right in front of me. Darren's expression softened. His voice, calm and low, carried a weight she had never known. Your anger was your armor, Alira. I understood it. You had to learn, as all must. Your pride is strong, but your heart is stronger. Her eyes widened at his words. She had expected chastisement, but instead he spoke with understanding, with love she had not realized she longed for. She stepped closer, unsure how to bridge the distance between them. Why did you not tell me? Why did you stay silent all these years? Darren lowered his head, his scarred hands tightening briefly at his sides. Because your safety mattered more than my pride. Because the court would not have understood. Because I did not want you to bear the weight of judgment for being my daughter. Alira's chest tightened. She realized how much he had sacrificed, how much he had endured to protect her. Her own shame deepened. She had been so quick to judge, so quick to mock, and now she understood that he had never sought to hurt her. Only to protect her, even at great personal cost. I cannot believe I did not see it, she whispered. Tears pricked her eyes, though she quickly blinked them away. I have been blind. I have let my pride rule my heart. Darren's voice remained steady. It is not too late, Alira. Pride is a shield, but understanding is stronger. You have learned. That is what matters. For a long moment, she stood in silence, the wind stirring around them, carrying the faint scent of the storm fields. She looked at him, truly looked, and saw not just the warrior who had guided her through danger, but the man who had carried her in his heart all these years. Her pride no longer blinded her. Respect and love began to replace the shame that had weighed so heavily. You truly fought for me, she asked quietly, her voice barely more than a whisper. Even when I mocked you. Darren's eyes softened further. Always. Even when you doubted, even when you spoke harsh words. I have always been here, watching, protecting. That is what it means to be your father. Her chest ached with a strange mixture of guilt and gratitude. She lowered her gaze, feeling the weight of her earlier arrogance. For the first time, she admitted the truth, she could not have survived the storms, the raiders, or the trials without him. Her strength alone had not been enough. He had been the pillar she did not see, the shield she had ignored. Alira took a deep breath and stepped closer. Her voice was steadier now, though still filled with emotion. I do not know how to repay you. How can I make up for the years I spent doubting you, mocking you? Darren shook his head gently. Do not speak of repayment. Your life, your safety, your growth, that is enough. Seeing you learn, seeing you stand strong, that is reward enough for me. The wind shifted, carrying the soft rustle of leaves from the palace gardens. Alira reached out, hesitating for a moment, then allowed her hand to brush against his. It was a small gesture, but one that spoke of connection, of forgiveness, of the fragile beginnings of trust. I will try, she said softly. I will try to see you not only as a warrior, but as my father. Darren's lips curved in the faintest smile. That is all I ask. Step by step, we will learn together. Strength is not only in the body, Alira, but in the bond we share. The princess nodded, her pride still present but tempered by understanding. She felt the first true warmth of connection she had known with him. The lessons of the storm fields, the patience he had shown, and the battles they had faced together now made sense. Her mockery and doubt had been shadows over a truth she was only beginning to see. As they stood together in the courtyard, the sun began to break through the clouds. Light spilled over the stone floors, reflecting off the edges of Darren's worn armor, and glinting on Alira's blade. The scene was quiet, yet powerful. Two souls, father and daughter, had begun to mend the gaps that years of silence had created. Alira's heart, once heavy with pride, now carried hope. She would face the challenges ahead, not with arrogance, but with understanding. She would walk beside her father, learning, growing, and protecting her people together. The storms of the past could not erase the bond that now began to form, steady and strong like the very earth beneath their feet. The city of Vera gleamed in the morning light. Its crystal towers reflected the sun, casting soft patterns across the streets. The air was calm after the storms, yet everyone in the palace knew that danger still lingered beyond the walls. Raiders still gathered in the storm fields, seeking weakness. But the company, led by Darren and accompanied by Princess Alira, had returned stronger and wiser. Alira walked through the palace courtyard beside Darren. Her green robes were now trimmed with silver, a sign of her rank and accomplishments. Her blade of light hung at her side, polished and ready. Yet her mind was not on the glow of her armor or the sharpness of her blade. It was on the man walking beside her, the human warrior who had faced storms, raiders, and death without faltering. He was no longer simply a warrior in her eyes. He was her father. The soldiers gathered around them, their eyes showing respect and admiration. Many whispered to one another about the bond that had been forged during the storm fields, about the courage shown by both father and daughter. Alira felt a strange warmth, knowing that the people now saw not just her pride, but the strength that came from humility and understanding. They entered the great hall, where Queen Solara awaited. Her eyes moved between them, sharp yet gentle. She smiled, a rare expression that carried relief and pride. "You have returned, both of you. The kingdom sees your courage and your wisdom. The storm fields have tested us, yet we stand stronger than before." Alira bowed slightly, then looked toward Darren. His expression remained calm, but there was a quiet pride in his eyes. He had endured the storms, not for glory, but for family, for the safety of the princess, for the honor of the kingdom. Alira felt a pang of regret for the years of doubt, yet she knew she could now begin to build something new. The queen stepped aside, allowing Darren and Alira to approach the throne together. "You now understand," she said softly. "Strength is not only in the body, nor is it only in pride. Strength is in patience, in understanding, in courage, and in love. You have both learned this through the storms you faced." Alira looked at Darren, her voice steady but soft. "I have learned, father. I have seen your strength, your patience, and your care. I wish to learn more from you, to walk beside you, to protect our people together." Darren's calm face softened into a faint smile. "And I will guide you, Alira. Not to overshadow you, but to walk beside you. You have the courage of a warrior and the heart of a leader. Together, we will face what comes." The hall was filled with quiet admiration. Soldiers and nobles alike realized that a new bond had been formed, a bond stronger than any army, stronger than any storm. Alira's heart, once heavy with pride and doubt, now carried determination and understanding. She felt a connection to her father that she had never known before, a connection that would guide her through the challenges ahead. The next days were filled with planning and training. Alira and Darren worked together to prepare the city for the possibility of future attacks. The soldiers learned to fight not only with skill but with trust in one another. Darren shared his knowledge of strategy and patience, showing them how to anticipate danger, how to guard their weaknesses, and how to protect the innocent. Alira observed carefully, absorbing every lesson. She practiced alongside the soldiers, her blade of light cutting through training targets with precision. She asked questions, listened, and sometimes struggled with humility. Yet with every moment, her respect for her father grew, and her own strength deepened. She realized that true leadership was not only in command but in understanding those you lead, in protecting those who trust you. One evening, as the sun set over the city, painting the crystal towers in gold, Alira and Darren stood together on the balcony of the palace. The wind carried the faint scent of the storm fields, now distant but still alive in memory. Alira looked at him quietly. "Father," she said softly, "I have spent so long thinking I was strong alone. I thought my pride was all I needed. But I see now that strength is more than that. It is knowing when to fight, when to wait, and when to trust others." Darren's calm eyes met hers. "You have learned well, Alira. Pride is necessary, but alone it can blind us. The heart and the mind together guide true strength." Alira nodded, feeling a sense of peace she had never known. She realized that the years of doubt, the storms in the ruins, and the trials of the battlefield had all led her here, to understanding, to connection, to family. She took a deep breath, feeling the wind in her hair, feeling the quiet strength in her chest. The city below bustled quietly, unaware of the quiet victories of courage and trust that had been won above. Yet Alira and Darren knew that the bonds forged in storms, in battles, and in honesty were the strongest shields of all. They were ready to face whatever came, together, as father and daughter, as warriors and as protectors of their people. In the days that followed, Alira spoke openly with the soldiers, guiding them, listening to their concerns, and sharing lessons learned in the storm fields. Darren remained close, always calm, always steady, offering advice and encouragement. Their partnership became an example to all who saw them. The city of Vero learned that strength was not only in armor and swords but in trust, in patience, and in the bonds that could survive even the harshest storms. The raiders never returned immediately, but the city was ready. Alira had grown, her heart tempered by understanding, her pride reshaped by humility. Darren had taught more than strategy, he had shown her how to lead with courage and compassion. Together, they stood strong, a symbol of unity and resilience. One evening, as the first stars appeared in the sky, Alira looked at Darren with a soft smile. "Thank you," she said simply. "For everything. For staying, for protecting, for guiding me." Darren's calm eyes met hers, and for the first time, he allowed a small, proud smile to appear. "You had the courage within you all along, Alira. I only helped you see it." The princess nodded, her heart light. She knew that the bond they had built would guide them through every storm yet to come. She had learned the greatest lesson of all: strength is not measured by pride or armor, but by patience, love, and the courage to face the truth.